Welcome back. It's time now to take a look at the top business stories. Wave of global stock exchange mergers could trigger UAE bourses to do the same. ADX to increase transparency by launching big block equity market. And we find out about HP's strategy of doing business in the GCC region. But before we go to the top stories, let's take a look at the UAE stock markets. Both indices again ended lower today. The DFM fell 1.3% to close at 1,516 points. The only sector to post gains was the utilities sector. Stocks to watch today are contractor Drake & Skull and logistics provider Aramex, which dropped 4.7% and 4.1%, with this pair among the stocks most widely traded by foreign investors. Construction company Arabtech dropped 1.9%. Emaar Properties, the stock with the highest weight on the DFM, lost 1.3%. 123 million shares were traded, valued at 170 million dirhams. And over in the capital, the ADX lost 0.5% to close at 2,620 points. The only sector to post gains was the healthcare sector. Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank lost 2.2%. Alta Properties lost 2.9%. While RAK Properties lost 2.5%, as did Rusuru Real Estate. Dana Gas lost 1.5% and Etisalat 0.5%. 65 million shares were traded, valued at 89 million dirhams. And now it's time to take a look at the GCC markets, which ended mainly lower today. Coming up now, let's take a look at various currencies exchanged into dirhams, followed by the price of oil and a selection of commodities. Take a close look at silver. The metal reached a 31-year high today. And now let's take a look at currencies a bit closer with Anil Sachdev, head of DGCX operations at ACM Middle East. Welcome to the show, Anil. German business confidence unexpectedly rose to a fresh record high in February as booming exports spurred hiring and consumer spending. The IFO index, the most important business sentiment index for Europe's largest economy, increased to a level of 111.2 points. How did the euro react to the better-than-expected sentiment data?
The European service and manufacturing data rose to their fastest in 4 years, and the IFO Business Climate Index moved to 111.2 levels, which was the highest since 1991. Now, looking at the figures, breakdown would show that the rise in figures was mainly due to the export demand by China, as booming economy is helping exports to improve the Germany's economy, while domestic demand is weaker as countries from Spain to Ireland and Portugal are battling budget spends. Now, if you look at the euro, it was trading between 1.3650 levels to 1.3680 levels, and any further momentum could be subdued as the dollar and the yen continue to be strong.
Anil, Asian currencies could see a boost in prices as GDP improves in the region. Which ones are you looking at? Which promise the strongest gains?
Asian currencies are moving stronger as the GDP has been showing positive growth, with Indonesia and Thailand's currencies moving the strongest among the other Asian currencies. Apart from that, we have Chinese yuan moving to 17-year high against the dollar as the central bank wants to more appreciation of the currencies to tame inflation levels, and Thailand could see more hikes by 25 basis points, more to 3% in the coming months, where we're looking at GDP growing for Thailand Thailand at 1.5% for the last quarter and 7.8% for the whole of 2010. Now, among the Asian currencies, we're looking at Indonesian rupiah, Singapore dollar, Malaysian ringgit, and Chinese yuan improving, while South Korean won could be on the decline.
Thanks very much, Anil. And now to our top stories. A wave of mega mergers between the world's major stock exchanges might persuade policymakers in the UAE to do the same. The country's two largest exchanges, the ADX and DFM, are competing for more liquidity coming from international investors. But instead of being competitors, experts call for a consolidation of the two largest UAE bourses. A potential merger of the ADX and DFM would boost volumes and therefore make prices fairer. Talks concerning a merger have been ongoing since last year. And continuing with the ADX, there are plans to increase transparency by launching a big blocks market for large share sales. Starting on March 3rd, the ADX will have a separate screen to show private trades of large numbers of shares, so-called big blocks. Those trades will not affect the closing price of the stocks or be included in the ADX General Index. The reason for this step is that such large, often pre-arranged share deals don't reflect the fair price of the shares on the day of the transaction. Including these large deals into this day's stock's price would not reflect the true supply and demand on the market. The MENA bond market is set to gain momentum this year due to renewed investors' confidence in the region. By the end of the last year, the MENA region saw a total of $31 billion in bonds issued, a strong turnaround compared to 2009. Looking at this year, experts say there are signs this trend will continue. Investors were clearly comfortable investing in sovereign and corporate debt here in the region. The stronger investors' demand for bonds, the easier it is for governments or companies to refinance themselves. This renewed confidence in the region should motivate a wider range of corporations to issue bonds this year. And in our fast financial news, the Regional Meat Project Finance Conference, due to take place in Bahrain at the end of February, has been moved to Dubai. A message on the conference website said the event would still go ahead as scheduled, but that it would now take place at Dubai's Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Zain last night, after the stock market was already closed, announced a series of job cuts. 30 to 40% of the staff will have to leave the company, among them several senior executives. Reason being that the Kuwaiti telecommunications operator is worried that Etisalat's proposed $12 billion takeover of the company possibly won't go through. Releasing part of the old top management often eases the start of a newly merged company. For electronics retailers at the Dubai Shopping Festival, it was a real success. Some retailers witnessed sales rising by as much as 35 to 40% during the DSF. Especially TVs, smartphones and tablet PCs sold well. And in international news, the Sultanate of Oman raised its minimum monthly wage for nationals working in the private sector to 200 Omani riyals. This is the second time since 2007 that Oman has raised the private sector minimum wage for its countrymen. Wages will increase by 43%, the country's official news agency reported. One reason given is the rise in inflation to 4.2% and the speedy pace of increased food prices for the 4 months leading up to December. The decision came after Omani citizens voiced their concerns over the internet and through peaceful demonstrations.
This is not the first such procedure, but there was a similar procedure in 2007 where the minimum wage was set to 140 Omani riyals, and today has reached 200 Omani riyals, which the government believes, in partnership with the private sector, will provide stability for all Omanis as well as employees in the private sector and business owners, which contribute in one way or the other to the economic output in the country.
The U.S. House of Representatives on Saturday approved legislation to cut federal spending, a plan, though, sure to be stopped by President Barack Obama and his fellow Democrats in the Senate. The Republican-backed bill is a challenge to Obama to show he is serious about reducing the U.S. record budget deficit. Should a compromise not be found by the March 4th, the bill sets up the possibility of a government shutdown, as this is when current funding expires. Obama warned that tightening the belt too much, too soon, could harm the slow economic recovery. Attention now shifts to the Senate, which will write its own version of a government funding bill for this fiscal year, which ends on September 30th. And after the break, we take a look at Silicon Valley titan HP and its strategy here in the region.